Hey guys, how's it going? Jam here, and welcome to highlights from round 2 of the V8 Juniors that I'm co-hosting with Tom on Fail Race. As you can see, starting race 1, I was actually on pole position for this one, and I got a pretty decent start, not allowing Yami to pull alongside me into turn 1 and holding my line, and I actually had a fairly decent run out of turn 1 as well. So a pretty decent start, all ends up, and Yami wasn't quite close enough to challenge me at this early point. So we're going to jump later onto the lap where Yami definitely was close enough to challenge me, showing his nose right on cue. And that would definitely be the story of this video. You will be seeing a lot of Yami, that is for sure. So yeah, a little bit of a sideways action, bit of two wheels up there, but fortunately not quite enough for Yami to make anything of it. On to lap 5 now, so now halfway through the race, very nearly. And once again, we get to see a little glimpse of Yami's nose, but fortunately for me, not exactly enough to even really challenge me for position. He's not even getting his nose alongside. He's just appearing on the screen every so often. He does so again at the end of that lap. But yeah, apart from that, it was really quiet race. So we're jumping on to this last lap, which, as like Mugello last week, the last lap of this race has actually turned out to be my fastest, so I figured, considering we haven't had many highlights from this first race, we may as well ride on board. Through this second corner, I do tend to have quite a late turn in, stay as tight as I can to the apex, and then you can get a nice straight run around the next part and really floor the throttle. I'm trying not to use too much curbing, but as you can see, not my best first sector, very close to the pace, but I didn't quite get the line through turn 2 that I would have preferred. I would have liked a little bit of a later turn in to straighten up even earlier than I did on this occasion. Then it's just a case of braking as late as you possibly can into the hairpin. Once again, a late turn in so you can straighten up the car as quickly as possible. Over-revving it perhaps a little bit, kicked up a bit of tyre smoke. Just having a look back to check to see where Yami is, and Hordes is actually very close on Yami's tail, which really rather helped me out. Cut as much of that corner as you can. I just about kept some wheels on the track there, and then it's just hard on the brakes, down into third gear for a nice swooping run around this tight left-hander. It really dips in on the apex there, so it's really nice feel when you get it right. And then it's just a case of just holding the lines, running the curbs, and making the most of every bit of track that you can through the middle sector. Playing chicken with the wall that sticks out on the left-hand side. A nice turn in, touch, or almost cut the inside apex with half a car, and then accelerate up into the hairpin where you're going to be dropping into second gear. I actually get this hairpin wrong. I'm normally able to stay in third gear there, but I had to drop into second. I was just on a wider line. Helped me get a good exit though, and then it's just a case of running the curbs once again, and clipping the curb on the inside, clipping the curb on the outside, clipping the curb on the inside again, and then clipping the curb on the outside. I actually run a little bit too much of it there, and then accelerating to the line for a 1 minute 50.9. Is that 8.2? No, it might be 9.12. I can't read it in my preview window. But so yeah, that was it for race 1. That last lap I believe was the fastest of the entire evening, and I think the only one, the only lap that anyone put in that was a sub 1 minute 51. So I was very proud of that. And of course, into race 2, the win in race 1 put me on pole position once again, and once again it was a nice clean start. And once again, it was a relatively boring start to the race. A brief clip there on lap 4 showing how close Yami was behind me. And jumping onto lap 5 there, I think it's the first time all evening he's had the closest he's got. He actually managed to get his nose slightly up the inside of my car. But once again, it wasn't really anything I couldn't handle at that point. So on to lap 6 now, and it is starting to rain. Although, as you can see, bad time for me because I'm 7/10 up on my personal best lap in this race. Even though I led from the front and Yami didn't really challenge me, I wasn't quite hitting the pace that I was doing in race 1 at this early stage of the race 2. I was just a few tenths off where I was really hoping to be. I was really hoping to stretch out a lead, hoping that Hordes could put Yami under a lot of pressure for second and third, and enabled me to run away. But unfortunately that wasn't the case, and as you can see here, the rain makes a huge amount of difference. I went from 7/10 up to only half a tenth up in that final bit of the lap, and then one lap later, on lap 7, the pit window has opened, and Yami has indeed pit from second position as I carry on for another lap. On to lap 8 then, and once again I decide to stay out for another lap, and this time, as it's going to pop up on the left hand side, there it is, Hordes is now pitting from second but third before the pit lane. So myself, Hordes and Yami, the top 3, all pitting on 3 different laps, and now I come in for the last lap of the pit window on lap 9. Not the best pit entry there, nearly running wide. I clearly didn't do enough wet practice through the pit lane. I think I only did it once or twice in the dry, so definitely lesson learned for next week. Make sure I practice those pits. Of course, we've sped up the pit lane because it would be long and boring, and then on the exit, how are we all going to play out? It looks like Yami's managed to stay ahead of Hordes through the pit lane section, or through the pit stop. And likewise, it looks like I have managed to stay in front of Yami, but maybe a little bit closer than I was expecting, as the rain also stopped now, but the track is still a little bit wet. And through turns 2 and 3, I was able to get a fairly decent run, but even though I have managed to stay in the lead at this point in the race, I think Yami is quite possibly the closest he's been going down into this very tight hairpin. So for the first time all evening, I feel the need to go just slightly defensive. I'm not being aggressively so, but it didn't really work for me as I just simply braked too late. I think Yami did a little bit as well, but he was able to get his nose turned in and attempt a cutback. Fortunately, on the slightly wider line, I was able to out-drag him down towards the next corner, and you're never going to go too wide through the fast right, and then I'm just slightly defensive again through the left-hander, but Yami's going to try and go around the outside. Doesn't quite manage to get the overlap, and I would stay in front for now, and that would be it for the highlights from lap 10, I believe. So we're going to move on to lap 11, down into the hairpin again. I don't go defensive this time, and I don't... Oh, sorry, that's not the hairpin. What am I talking about? That's turn 2. Okay, yeah, I promise I do know this track. So yeah, out of turn 3, I made a little bit of a mistake. It was my personal best sector, but just after we crossed the sector line, running slightly out onto the curbing, really not getting the best run out of that. And once again, you can see Yami's a lot closer at this stage than he was, I think, ever before the first pit stops. So once again, I've gone defensive, and he's gone for what looks like a cutback line. I'm actually using first gear, which is a rare occurrence that you'll see me use first gear, even around that hairpin, because even on when you're normally on a racing line, it is only a second gear corner. And once again, revving it out in 4th through the quick right when I'd normally use 5th, and going defensive into the left-hander, where once again Yami has a quick look around the outside, but I cover him off initially. My line isn't brilliant through the next corners though, and Yami set me up perfectly by making that initial move, and he's worked absolute wonders with his racecraft there, setting me up an absolute treat to get the cutback through the right-hander that we've previously gone through, and then he has the inside up into the next right-hander. I'm going to try and make a move immediately and have a look at myself round the outside, this time at the hairpin. It's not really going to work. Yami has a little bit of a slide on the exit though. I tried to cut back and go to the inside for the next left-hander, but I mean, that space is always going to close, and contact was always going to be made. On to the start of lap 13, and we have something else to be thrown into the mix. We're coming up towards a back marker. He moves across to let Yami through, but I don't think he realised I was right behind Yami, and that was a scary small amount of contact, let me tell you. Certainly very nerve-wracking indeed. Fortunately though, it didn't play too much of an impact. Yami goes very defensive and quite deep into turn 2 after that. I get a brilliant initial run on him, but he gets a bit of a slide, and I get a tiny bit of a slide, and I didn't utilise this run quite as well as I perhaps could have. That said, I'm definitely close enough to be going on the attack into this next corner, and you'll see me do exactly that, braking at almost exactly the same point, but I just lifted off slightly, braking not quite so hard, so I could get to that inside, once again using first gear to accelerate out of the corner. But being on that inside tighter line, it's you're not going to get the traction down. I'm still sort of there through the fast right-hander, but as I've mentioned before, you're not going to go too wide through there, so it wasn't wise to really fight too hard at that point. I try and set Yami up in the same way that he got past me, by initially showing the outside and then taking this slight cutback line, but Yami is a wise old fox, and he covered me off beautifully. I am very, very close, but he covers the inside. I wasn't quite overlapping. I try and take a really fast around the outside line. Yami gets a bit of the inside, a little bit sideways on the inside, and I just ran out of curbing to try and utilise, and unfortunately I tagged the gravel and allowed Hordes to get past now, so I've dropped still onto the podium positions, but I am now on the lowest podium slot. A lap later, and I'm not going to lie, I want to get my podium back. Ideally, I want to win this race. I want to make it a double win, but I've got to get past Hordes first to do that. I dived to the outside, but unfortunately our cars weren't straight to each other, and under braking contact was made, and I nearly ended up in gravel again, and your Defties now tried to make a move on me, and I just about managed to hold on to third place. So yeah, my overtaking skills perhaps need a little bit of a work. Maybe, you know, the classic stories about Sebastian Vettel, he could only lead from the front. It seems as though I'm doing pretty much the same stereotype. I did very well in race 1 when I was leading from the front, but now I'm having to fight cars. It's really not going too well, and Udefti's now up the inside into turn 1. Almost make contact there. I run a car's width out on the outside, but I couldn't stay on the track there without making any contact with Udefti, so that was, I think, perfectly fair considering the circumstances, and I do manage to hold on to third position for now. And at this point I'm a little bit downhearted because I've managed to fend off Udefti. I'm still on the podium, but I am down in third place, and I do think, considering the race results of the race 1 and qualifying, that I could be doing a little bit better. And lap 16 now is not like last week. We haven't bothered with a cool-down lap because the replay cuts off anyway, so it's completely pointless. So we're racing right to the end, on the end of lap 16, and that is absolutely perfect for me because racing is what we are doing. Hordes and Yami are going too wide for the lead up ahead, and that's basically the only the only chance I have. I get completely over-eager and cut the fast right-hand corner. But, oh, and then I get scared the crap out of me watching it back, let alone what happened during the race. I've completely forgotten about that. Yami has managed to hold off Hordes, and I'm now right on the back of him. But we're going into the stadium section. There's only a few corners left at this point. I'm not going to bother trying anything like I did before. Yami's a bit wide, and I've already tried to go on the outside of Hordes once. I have a look at going to again. I see him move. I try and back out of it, and I've just completely bollocksed up there. I completely held my hands up, ran straight into the back of Hordes. Fortunately, we all came out pretty clean, but that's not going to stop me from going for another move up the inside into the final corner. A little bit of contact was made, unfortunately, because I'm not sure if Horde saw that I was coming. It's one of those really direct lines where you dive in and perhaps hit the blind spot. So it's a real shame that it was a little bit of a, well, a scruffy would be an understatement, end to the lap. But I don't think there was anything hugely untoward, and fortunately Horde didn't seem to complain, and nor did Udefti about either of the moves. So there would be no punishments there. In fact, it was a very clean race by everyone altogether. A couple of incidences through people lower down the field, but I did miss out on top scoring in this round by 1 point due to the feature race scoring more points, so congratulations, Yami, on that. However, in the overall standings, being consistent throughout the consistently in second place, mainly. I've had 3 seconds and a first now in the 4 races. That has been enough to propel me to the top of the leaderboard, with Hordes in second place, Udefti, who featured prominently in this video, in third, and then also Yami has climbed himself up to 4th after top scoring. And anyway, that is it for round 2 of the V8 Juniors from Hockenheim. Thank you very much for watching, and until the next round at Nürburgring, goodbye.